Hello, welcome to this audio stream which is running alongside the May month of repentance. This is audio 16 for Saturday, May the 16th. Yesterday we learned that every nation has a choice. It can live by the golden light of Christ, or it can live under the flying scroll of judgment. I think I said yesterday, I believe that Ghana started out really well, living by the golden light, and Ghana was an inspiration to Africa and the world. But slowly, the enemy managed to get in amongst us, and we went after the money. Comfort, ease, personal satisfaction, self-centered religion, prosperity, all these things will come, everything will be fine. We built big churches, and we said, God will never judge us, with an arrogance that I've always found quite astonishing. But COVID-19 is a warning to us in Ghana. God is thinking of releasing the flying scroll of judgment because of what we've become, because we're so far from the cross, from obedience, from sacrifice, from service, from humility. We are far from all those things. And I believe that COVID-19 is the Lord warning us that he is no longer happy with what is happening here, and for him enough is enough. But our God is very loving, and when he created all things, he made provision for nations that had strayed from his path to find their way back, and that's called repentance. And I believe we have to have a national repentance in Ghana. How does it begin? That's what we'll learn today. How does it begin? And I'm going to go to 1 Samuel 7, verse 2. The people of Israel had strayed far from God's path. They had lost the Ark of the Covenant, and they believed, by the way, that because they had the Ark, they would never be beaten. Their arrogance was close to ours. They lost the Ark, and they were in a terrible way. They were far from the Lord. And then we read this. Then the people of Israel turned back to the Lord. That's 1 Samuel 7:2. Then the people of Israel turned back to the Lord. This is the first step in national repentance. We're going to look at the others, but let's take them one at a time, as we did with the lost son. This is what happened. They were in a bad way, and suddenly or slowly the Spirit stirred and they came to their senses. Just like our young man in the story of Luke 15, he came to his senses. The whole nation came to its senses and turned back to the Lord. That expression is much stronger in the Hebrew than it is in our language. In the Hebrew, it reads this: they lamented after the Lord. They lamented after the Lord. Now that word lament is often used in funerals, and I've done hundreds of funerals as a pastor, and I've seen many people lamenting. It's more than crying. Any pastors listening will know this. It's more than crying. It is, I've tried to understand it over the years, it is a combination of grief, that's natural, of a sense of loss, of anger, of confusion, of worry, of an empty future and a lost past and no promise. It's a very painful thing to watch, especially when it breaks out in great strength. Lamenting. And the people of Israel lamented before the Lord. They suddenly became aware, like the lost son, but at a far deeper level, they became aware of what they'd done. They trusted in the ark, but they hadn't trusted in the Lord that gave it to them. They had done what Isaiah warned. We've mentioned it before. These people honour me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Suddenly they realised they didn't have the protection that the Lord gives to those that love him. They didn't have a promise anymore. They were living by the promise of through the prophets that Israel would be the one from whom would come the Messiah. They were living by the promise of being a chosen race, special and different. They were living by the promise that God would always provide and protect them, even though the going might get tough. They lived by the promise that their God would never let them down. And here they were, far from that protecting hand. Suddenly they realized that it wasn't the ark they'd lost. It was that intimacy with God, which was his promise to them. They'd lost that. They were lamenting. They were lamenting after the Lord. They were seeking after the Lord. They were lamenting and saying to the Lord, please, please, please hear our broken hearts. Please see our sorrow. Please, please, please. That's lamenting. And we have to come to that as a people, both as a national leadership and as at the local level. We have to begin to lament for what we have lost. I've been teaching and working in repentance for over 30 years, and I've seen this so many times, that suddenly onto people comes the realization. I can teach it and explain it, and they look blankly at me, but suddenly the Spirit touches them, and the emptiness of unrepentance fills their heart. And that's what the Lord is looking for, not because he hates us or wants to punish us, but because he needs to know it really matters. And what's more, my brothers and sisters listening, our lamenting matches his. Have you ever thought of that? One day I stood before the Lord and he opened his heart to me, and his sorrow for lost Ghana poured over me and poured over me and poured over me. I was bowed down and pushed down to the ground, and I cried out, Lord, please stop. I will die under this great sorrow. And I consider that a privilege to have been allowed to feel that, but I have felt it. We must lament before the Lord, and he is lamenting for us. This is the nature of our God. He doesn't stand on high and say lament. No, he laments for us. He laments for us and with us. That's why for me the path of national repentance is such a joy, because I have a chance of healing that agony in the heart of the Lord by bringing the agony of Ghana before him. I had this strange vision one day. I've been thinking whether I should share it with you, but I just will. I was standing in the presence of God, and I heard this terrible crying sound coming from somewhere, and I realized it was coming from the earth. And the Father turned to the Son and said, Son, what is that noise I am hearing? And the Son said, Father, that is our people of Ghana lamenting for their sin and their loss. And the heart of the Lord was filled with love, and he began to think deep in his heart, I will get my child back again, and I will be able to give my child the promise. I want to finish with this question, and then we'll pray briefly. Are we a grieving people? Is the church in Ghana grieving for what we have become, and grieving for what God is having to bear for us? If we are, then we've begun the first step for repentance. My request today to many of us is, will you join us in the lamentation? The prayer point today is from King David. My sacrifice, O God, is a broken spirit for Ghana. A broken and contrite heart you, O God, will not despise. Let's offer him our broken and contrite hearts for our land. Thank you for listening.